that there will be, there's a good chance that, especially if you're looking at a typology, there's like 4 of one type, you can at minimum expect a multiple choice, and at maximum an essay on this particular slide. So make sure you're ready for this one. Plus, it's one that they've always included in Rereading America. I've always worked it in since I've been teaching American Experience. So extra spoiler alert, make sure you got this one ready. Okay. So we've got ethnic hierarchy theory. The next one is the assimilation theory. And in fact, I know it says assimilation theory, but what it really should say is one-way assimilation. I remember seeing it was a model of a Midwestern city, most likely based on Chicago. And it was color-coded by ethnic wards. Y'all know what wards are? W-A-R-D, like a ward.
Section, like a section kind of.
Yeah, kind of like a district. It's almost like we divide Georgia into a bunch of counties. It's a way to divide cities. A lot of times you did it into wards. It's like in the way of neighborhoods. But at any rate, they showed based on African American, Jewish, Irish, everything. And many sections of the city were named assimilated. And I'm reading this as a high school student, so I'm like, what the heck is assimilated? Well, assimilated means that everyone conforms to a common culture. WASP. How many, I know I've got the term here, how many of you have heard that term WASP before? You don't hear it near as much as perhaps you used to. Anybody heard that term? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant? WASP? None of y'all have? White Anglo-Saxon Protestant? Wow, you hadn't. Okay. Maybe it's a more common term for your folks and your grandparents or so. Or if you've heard like a waspish or so. Phrase for that. But yeah, what that means is America makes new cultures conform to an existing culture. Can you think of examples how Americans have used assimilation theory? Okay, how would assimilation work more specifically? Okay, meaning what? Yeah, you're on the right path. Okay, basic American ideals instead of their own. A common language. So in other words, you would learn a language different from your own. Okay, nobody's ever brought up Native American. That's actually pretty interesting. Can you think of times in America's history, can you think of family examples where a culture coming in would conform to a dominant culture? Okay, do y'all have any examples? Y'all have like do y'all discuss with your folks, your grandparents, about your family origins? Like where you came from, any changes that need to be made? None of y'all? All right, that's my assignment for you for Thanksgiving. Y'all got to start talking, okay? Stop watching that Detroit Lions football game. They're not going to win anyway. Geez, Calvin Johnson retired. What chance do they have?
Stafford's having a good year.
I know. He's on my fantasy team. He's building me up. Eli Manning sure as heck is. Do y'all don't have discussions? For example, neither of my parents' last names are their own. Last names changed. Which is why I should have a more Germanic name on my dad's side, but that name changed. On my mom's side, when my great-grandfather came on over, they came over from Poland, like an area kind of, it's like Polish-Ukrainian area, so it's in East Europe. And the last name was Yakowenko, J-A-C-K-O-W-E-N-K-O. Well, he sure as hell couldn't get much of a job or get very far. He's very ambitious. He wanted to get into banking. He wanted to work for a bank. Even to get a job as a teller, he sure as heck couldn't get a job as Tony Yakowenko. So they took 4 letters out of the middle part of that. O-W-E-N, Owen, and he became Anthony C. Owen. They changed his name to sound more of like a waspish name, because Owen sounds a lot more like he came from the British Isles. And so that's how you got ahead. Nobody had any family stories like that? Jacob Wood, you don't have like Wojciechowski, the long last name. So nowadays it's more acceptable to have last names. We can kind of embrace it a lot more than we used to. Otherwise, Duke's head coach would be, instead of Mike Krzyzewski, who the heck could even spell that, he'd be Coach K. K-A-Y. Nobody has a story like that where your family changed their name? What you got, Tony?
My great-great-grandma came over from Ireland, and they were the O'Connors.
Okay.
And they dropped the O to Americanize themselves. Now, like, my mom's main name is Pamela Connor.
Yeah. O'Connor doesn't sound like it's too bad. O apostrophe. That doesn't sound too bad. Why would they change that?
Because my great-grandmother said to become more American.
Yeah. But why would you want to become more?
It makes it easier to assimilate into the culture.
Yeah. Easier to get on by. You can type in on your Google Images sign saying Irish need not apply. Because that was a phrase that went all the way through. Anybody ever seen the Mel Brooks humor movie Blazing Saddles? Spoof of Westerns? Anybody seen it? Nobody? There's a scene where they're like talking about all these like, you know, minorities, would they be allowed in this western town? And they said, okay, all right, we'll accept these people, but not the damn Irish. And then somebody glares at them and goes, okay, we'll take the Irish. I mean, it's seen as a joke that other people would get in ahead of the Irish. But yeah, there was a time where Irish were not. That movie I told you about that you got to see, Gangs of New York. You know, it's mostly Irish immigrants, and people didn't want floods of Irish immigrants coming on in. Why? You're from the British Isles. Why do people have a problem with the Irish swarming on over? They're Catholic. Okay, that's one big issue. And it doesn't fit with white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And have people think that folks have a problem with Mexicans coming on over because they're Catholic? Is that part of it? Which is interesting. I try and tell Republican parties when I speak to them. It's like, you know, when you have all the Mexican immigrants coming on over, it's like, keep in mind this, since I grew up in El Paso, Hispanics are actually more conservative than whites on a number of issues. You know, just, I mean, do what you like, but you're denying a lot of Republican voters into this country. You just think they're Democrat. The only reason that, I mean, seriously, if you actually talk with people who are Hispanic, most of the people who are trying to come to this country are the ones who are the most capitalistic in mindset. They're leaving a socialist system. Gee, when you're leaving a socialist system, you're probably not socialist. You can't get ahead because you're not paying off a lot of government bribes. You don't believe in the government should control the economy system. You know, many people, they're not coming here to get on our welfare system. It's a dead giveaway to be thrown back. Coming over here to be an entrepreneur. You're basically, Republicans are just en masse building a wall to keep as many Republicans out of this country as possible. Yeah, Hispanics are more conservative than whites socially. Any day of the week. The average white. I know there's some fairly conservative whites. I get that. But just as a whole. So, they build a wall. That's, you know, there's, believe it or not, there's part of Democrats who are like, yeah, let's get Trump as the Republican nominee. Not only to defeat him, but geez, if he wins. And you know, I've had people go, no, you're wrong. Okay, I guess I didn't grow up in a Hispanic community. Silly me. No, I mean, I went to school in San Antonio too. I mean, I know Hispanics better than most people around here. You know, most of who you're seeing are people who have been given no option other than to, you know, to work off the grid. But even then, most people who come to this country would rather work off the grid than go on welfare. Welfare is the quickest ticket back. And some of them are fleeing a lot of violence over in Mexico. It's a pretty dangerous place with drug cartels and battles. And oftentimes the government, not under the National Action Party, but under the current corrupt system, the government sometimes does the drug dealers' bidding for them. There were some school teachers who were protesting against the heavy-handed government. So government rounded them up, gave them to drug lords who massacred them all. You can look it up. So a lot of times people are coming into this country because it's safer, it's more capitalistic, there's more opportunity to succeed. And their social conservative values could help get the Republicans back in the majority. Oops. Oh well. What are some other examples where people have had to conform to a WASP culture once you're already in the United States? Nobody?
Maybe education,
How's that?
like you're required to go to like a certain level of education. As kids.
How's that conforming to WASP culture?
What happened with Native American?
Okay, you weren't here, but yeah, Wes brought that up. Okay, what else? Although it's good because nobody before Wes ever brought it up, so we're 2 for 2. Come on, folks, everyday culture. I've got a question for you. Conformity to WASP culture. A lot of times people use that as a phrase, and that's why you're all staying quiet, because you're really uncomfortable. That's like conformity to white culture. Are there cases where somebody who's non-white can conform to white culture, and people who are white do not conform to what's considered white culture? Ooh, Dr. Tures is mentioning tricky stuff. Can you think of examples in popular entertainment, perhaps?
You mean, you said we conform to white?
Where some people conform to white culture who are non-white better than people who are white. Okay, I'll give you an example perhaps. My wife liked a show in college called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Have y'all ever seen this show? And there was a certain character.
Oh.
Okay, that didn't take long, did it? My son knows how to do the Carlton. He said, "Dad, when I score my first goal, I'm doing the Carlton at midfield." At the same time, aren't there people who are white who seem to reject what is considered white culture, or what popular media has labeled white culture, to be different? Do we have any examples? Who?
Definitely riffraff. Definitely riffraff.
Who's that?
Just Google riffraff sometime and you'll understand.
Oh, okay, but not here in class. I see a couple head shaking. Bad idea. Nobody else? Are there? Can we think of examples, others as well, where somebody's white but not necessarily conforming to white culture? I mean, growing up in El Paso, I mean, yeah, I'm white, but I hung out with the overwhelming majority of Hispanic people. I became pretty fluent in Spanish. There's a lot of stuff about white culture I didn't understand until I pretty much came out of El Paso to other areas. I told you that story about we were going out to eat, because I went from a culture where my high school was 90% Hispanic. And everyone said, "Oh my gosh, you went to school, it was 10% white?" I said, "Oh, no. It was 90% Hispanic. Then you had whites, Asian Americans, and African Americans. So it was more like 5% white." And I went to a school that was 90%, I went to a college that was 90% white. It was 75% suburban Houston. And I told you about this, like first night, a bunch of us got together who were thinking about pledging a fraternity. It was a co-ed fraternity, a service fraternity. One person goes, "Hey, let's go out for Mexican." And I said, "Mexican what?" And everybody laughed. But I had not heard that phrase before. Yeah, they just thought that was funny. They would say Mexican what? It was like, everybody knew that meant go out for Mexican food. But see, in El Paso, you don't say, "Hey, let's go out for Mexican." And I tried to explain to people, I said, when you go out, like you want to get barbecue or burgers, you don't say, hey, let's go out for American. Or instead of like going to Chick-fil-A and say, hey, let's go out for white food. Nobody does that. Do they? Yeah, so I just wasn't used to that. So, and people were telling me about some cultures, and I was like, ooh. Like for example, when you go to prom in the Hispanic community, everybody shows up. I mean, everybody. We're talking second cousins. You need even for our small schools, you needed a huge, and everybody has videotapes. It's a huge family event to go to prom. When you go, you take your family and your extended family. People wondered what the heck was wrong with me that I just showed up by myself. I sure as heck wasn't gonna take my brothers and sisters and my folks. No, and they were all like, they were wondering like, oh, poor guy, he's like the only one without a family. Like, no videotape? Why the hell would you want a videotape? Isn't this awkward enough? But it's a different kind of culture. It's not a bad culture, but it is very, very different. So I didn't realize that. So I'm slowly picking up from you. It's not just in the United States. A friend of mine, if I say it's friends from the CIA, I don't mean he's like James Bond or anything. I mean it's just Central Intelligence Agency. But anyway, he was in the Peace Corps and went over to Africa. This is before he went into the CIA. People keep talking about the Peace Corps as a CIA front. It's not, but just some people do this sort of thing. Just like international politics and got involved in this. But anyway, he did his Peace Corps work over in Africa. And now over in Africa, pretty much the people from Africa will say, if you're from the United States, you are called white, regardless what your skin color is. Because this is set in the 1960s. There were people who were African American who came over. They got really offended. This is in the 60s, folks. Civil rights movement, black consciousness, and many Peace Corps workers going over to Africa, and they were super insulted to be called white. But for over in Africa, white is not a skin color, but a behavior. Does this make sense? It's not like what your skin color is, it's how you act.
Is it like the stereotypes? Is that what we're talking about?
I think some of it's based on stereotype. But yeah, some of the Africans were sort of saying, okay, you dress differently, you act differently. We can kind of see in your eyes you're looking down on us somewhat, kind of like the old colonial overseers. Many of the people from Africa or from the United States who were black coming over, not everyone ate the food. It's like, I'm not gonna eat that. Which is funny because this person from the CIA, he was like, he ate everything. I mean, he just hung out with everybody. I mean, he just lived in the same villages, and just with the culture shock, some people who were African American, it took a little while to sort of culturally acclimate or something. This other guy, his family traveled some, so he was used to. And they were actually telling this white person, they were like, you're more black than they are. But again, it was based on a personality, not skin color. Now, by the end of the trip, most of the people were African American. Everybody was just hanging out together. But isn't it, I don't know, this is probably a touchy subject. This is being videotaped. But for some people, it's not a skin color, it's an action. And you probably, there was a song from, what was the group? Offspring, you ever heard of Offspring? There was a popular song when I was in grad school. It was called Pretty Fly for a White Guy. And a guy who was white, who was trying to buy into the rap culture, but doing a really miserable job of it. And so it was kind of teasing him, it was kind of making fun. You ever seen? That's what one way assimilation is. The people who get ahead, it's not based on look, but how you act. So it is possible for someone who is, and yeah, I had a friend who was in high school who was Hispanic. His name was Jaime Dominguez, and he was whiter than me, according to most people. He went off to Princeton and he changed his name to James Dominguez, so he could sound more like he was East Coast. Does this make any sense? I'm not saying I probably don't sound Hispanic at all or something like that, but you know, he was doing more to fit into the Princeton culture than I ever did when I was in college out in San Antonio. Does this, y'all are staying quiet, it's like a nervous subject, right? Okay, I'll move over to cultural pluralism, where America blends different cultures together to form something uniquely American. Now, most people tend to think melting pot is that, but cultural pluralism is a little different. How so? Well, what's the biggest difference? Let's say from this melting pot graphic. What's the difference between assimilation and a true melting pot? How is cultural pluralism different from assimilation? I know it's a hard question. Take a shot.
It's like everything comes together in the cultural pluralism. I can't pronounce that word right now.
Yeah.
But, and then assimilation, like, it's one set thing, and the other one's like a mix of a bunch of different things.
Here's a way to think about it that kind of fits with yours. It's a two-way street. And this is back what Henri St. John Crevecoeur was getting at, Letters on American Farmer. You're going to be different when you come on over. Americans have a bit of Native American in them. Americans have a bunch of different European cultures. Americans have an African American culture, a Hispanic culture, an Asian American culture. That means even whites will have all of these. That's why it's a two-way street. That's why Americans are very different, according to the cultural pluralism model, from, let's say, Europeans, or from even Canadians. Does this make sense? This is like an American experience. Not everyone's going to look the same. I got that, but this new American culture, this idea of a melting pot means that we're going to be different. This blending doesn't mean everyone has to all go over to one type. Like the ingredients, all the other ingredients disappear and only one ingredient dominates. It's one where whatever comes out of this blend is going to be very different from what went in. Does that make sense? I had, anybody know Linda McMullen, business department? A couple of y'all may have had her for a class or two. Yeah, she and I used to do debates. We would do melting pot debates. And she would point out all the ways in which we're not a melting pot, and I would point out all the ways in which we are. Like she pointed out language. There are a lot of words we use that mean nothing over in Europe. And those words did not come from the white culture, but we use them in everyday language. Our food, how we dress, what we wear. She pointed out SAT bias. I don't know about all of you, but there are a lot of words used on the SAT that no, whites do not use those words either. We have to look them up. Isn't that the case? I mean, the SAT has a lot of words where you better know some prefixes and suffixes, because sure as hell, the only time you'll ever hear that word is on the SAT. Isn't that? She at least had to concede that point. Does that make sense? So the idea of in a melting pot, and this is what Henry Ford was getting at. Henry Ford may have thought, yeah, I'll get a lot of different people over and we'll make everybody happy. But what even Henry Ford may not have realized is, we'll be a different type of person. If you were to be deported back to your mother country, would you fit in? Would you be the same? 2016 election, you hear jokes about people joking like, oh yeah, they just deport this person. Like, if I got deported to Germany, I guess that's the closest I would have, because, I mean, I don't have a dominant ethnic group, I got a bunch of mixes of ethnic groups, but I guess if you had to stick me somewhere, Germany would be the closest. I mean, I don't know any German words. I mean, I know doorbell and house and good morning, I think. I would not know a lot of the foods, I would not know a lot of the customs, I wouldn't know the holidays. I know a ton of history and culture, that's about the only way I could get on by. How many of y'all, if you were deported back to the country of your origin, how many of you would be ready for it?
I'd still be here.
How many of you wouldn't even know what you're called? We're going to deport you. Ah, geez. Where the heck would that be? No, we're Americans. America is our culture. We had a family of Germans who came to stay with us. It's like they were artists, and they were shocked that we didn't like dress like Germans, speak German, know any German holidays or customs. And I remember joking, I said, oh yeah, my lederhosen is in my closet, let me go get it. What freaking lederhosen? No, I'm not German. I don't even call myself German American. American. Now the last one is group separatism. Where groups live within America. When I say group separatism, I don't mean somebody just leaves the country. No, we stay in this country, but we kind of keep in our own spaces. We kind of keep separate. Same area, but we don't really conform. The new model that you hear is called the salad bowl. Because if you think about it, right, a salad is not a melting pot. You put different ingredients in, right? We're all in the same country, the same bowl, but we don't conform to something. The lettuce does not conform to the tomatoes, or to the carrots, or to whatever that cucumber slices is that somebody insists, or if you go over to Mighty Joe's, the onions. Who puts onions in a salad? That's just wrong. It's a Vidalia thing, isn't it? Right? If a salad did blend together, well, you better throw it out, because that means it's been in your fridge a really long time, you know, where it's that weird kind of orangish color. Because, oh, I forgot about that salad I got at Mighty Joe's a long time ago. Better pitch it. It blended together, but that's not a good thing. Right? Didn't your folks, when they bought your Play-Doh, they were like, don't mix the Play-Doh too much, because then it turns into that weird color. Yeah, blending is not a good thing in a salad bowl or in Play-Doh, right? I just think we always just blend. The heck with what Mom and Dad said, I'm putting the blue and the red and the yellow all together and the green. Comes out a strange yellowish color. Yes, what are examples of group separatism in the United States, where groups live in this country, but they prefer to remain apart from others?
Like in New York, where you have Chinatown and Little Italy, and then you have like the city.
Okay. Or Miami, there's Little Haiti and Little Havana. Others, can you think? Some ethnic boroughs.
Like Indian reservations.
Okay, Native American reservations. Yeah, you don't have to live on, it's not like the old days where it's like Wounded Knee days, where like, get on the damn reservation. You can choose to live at the Creek Reservation in Alabama, or you can just stop by once a year and make a hotel reservation. We got that new hotel. Okay, well, I thought it was funny. But yeah, you don't have to live on the reservation. You can choose to live there. Other examples where we see group separatism, or where someone tries to keep themselves distinct from others.
Asian.
What you said, China. How about something where like a type of behavior or a type of language or anything? Go ahead, Jacob.
High school?
Is high school like that, where people keep separate?
Well, it depends, like, there's certain groups, like, people group together.
Okay. Not along ethnic lines? Or maybe
Well,
sometimes it's along ethnic lines?
Not necessarily along ethnic lines, it's more just like behaviors.
Okay. That could, yeah. I mean, geez, if you ever seen, anybody ever seen the movie Breakfast Club? Like, it was, so we form people in groups or something. But sometimes it's been argued that at colleges this happens. How many of y'all been to another college? Or do you see people group themselves ethnically? How many of you were here when we had one of the Freedom Riders here? Did y'all see it? The gentleman who was on the bus that was firebombed outside of Anniston, Alabama? Did anybody see? Anybody go to that? This was
that last year?
not last. Let's see. Oh yeah, it would be 2015, I think. January 2015. Were y'all here? It was like so crowded there, like it was in the Dixon Assembly Room. We had to go to the overflow room, so I went over to, I had to go with Jalen Butler over to the Corn Auditorium where they put it on remote cast. Anybody go to that? Oh, that was an amazing event. He talked about what it was like, being a part of history. And a pretty terrifying part of history, because, I mean, firebomb, folks, that's terrorism. Any way you look at it. In fact, the firebomb, believe it or not, saved them because they would have all been slaughtered on the bus. But when the bus exploded, it actually led to an open part. The rest of the bus was on fire, so everyone could jump out and escape. Of course, he got beaten up by the mob and the police. But I asked him, because at lunch I had the good fortune to catch up with him, and we were talking some, and I identified myself as a writer for the media, and so we chatted some. And he told me, he said, John, and he was just looking out just over, just a large group of people. He said, this is the most integrated college campus I've seen, with the exception of the University of Mississippi, which at that time, because the Mississippi has the part of the Confederate flag, and recruits were not wanting to play for University of Mississippi, so the school was doing everything they could to, not force, but strongly, as best as possible, encourage integration. He said, John, this is the most integrated college campus I've ever been on. And I said, Hank, we did it for you. We knew you were coming. And he grinned at me, he knew that. I was just joking. He could tell. Isn't that interesting? See, you may not have realized, but he goes to college campuses all across the country. And evidently, it's not like at LaGrange. People do hang out in separate groups. Salad bowl, right? You're in the same salad. Lettuce isn't fighting the tomato, right? You're all together, but you kind of keep your own space. What do you think we have? Can you all do this? I'm just curious what you think. We'll do secret ballot. We do this sometimes for faculty. If we got like a really contentious vote, somebody does secret ballot. This one group, they should have done the secret ballot if they wanted to win yesterday, and I kept thinking, how about this? Tear up a small piece of paper. Let me know. What do you think we've got? Ethnic hierarchy, one-way assimilation. Don't put your name on it. Just be anonymous. Cultural pluralism, or group separatism. Just curious what you think. I'm trying to make the strongest argument for all or any of it. Just curious. I knew I should. What I really need to do is I need to get a stack of what you call scrap paper so y'all can do this. I'm just curious as to what so, yeah, before you go out, can you give it to Lauren? And Lauren, you can hand it over to me. So before you leave. That way I'm not looking at it. It's not like it matters. All right, can you all go to the email link that I provided? How many of y'all have already done that? Okay. Now it changes from time to time, so I want to see what it looks like now. There's no guarantee, however, that this is going to pull up. Oh my gosh. Mariah is very hurt. No, I'm just amazed that it pulled up. And if you don't have the link, just type in implicit association test. Now you can do these based on any of them. In fact, I wouldn't mind if somebody looked at a different one. You could do social attitudes, implicit associations about race, gender, sexual orientation, other topics. And you are not required at all to share your results with anyone else or me. This is just like an exercise to show you. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to take a look at mental health, like self-esteem, anxiety, alcohol, and other topics. And also, they evidently do implicit associations with U.S. presidential candidates. And just a little background on what you're going to do before you do it. It won't take that long, but I feel like I need to prep you a little bit.
What did did you go to get to that page?
Well, I just typed in implicit association test.
Okay, this was what came up with the link that you sent.
Oh, Project Implicit, very good. Okay, now you did it right. Think Project Implicit. I think it's out of Harvard, is that right? Or is it Yale? One of those Ivy League. Now, couple things.
How do you get into
How do I get into
that?
what?
What's the password?
You have to.
Oh, I was gonna say, just go up here, but then we don't see what you're doing. Everybody in? Raise your hand if you're in. Project Implicit.
Where did we go to? Was we get to?
Let's see, where are you at? Oh, you're there, very good. Yeah, yours is a little different. You don't have to do the login or something. You can click on take a test if you want to, but before you do, let me just fill you in on a couple things. Okay. This is just a theory, all right? Keep this in mind, it's not scientific law. It's really hard to figure out if somebody's biased or not. If I asked you, I was like, are you a biased person? Of course you don't say yes. You'd have to be like David Duke or something, that Louisiana Senate candidate who's a former Klan leader. Like, he's like shamelessly, I mean, he'll like, he's one of like the only Americans like, I'm biased or something. And if you do good social science research, you don't ask somebody a question where they're gonna give a leading answer. So the folks at Implicit Association Test over at Harvard, what they realized is, well, instead of just asking somebody one way, a lot of times you gotta ask the question indirectly, or you gotta test something indirectly. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna give you a quiz, like a little thing, where you have to associate, they do it differently each time, but I'll give an example of one. You'll have to get an answer right. They'll show an image of a person, and you have to click on like who that person is. Like if they show an image of Barack Obama, you gotta click on the Obama thing, or you hit a yes, like, is this Obama, yes or no? Or if they show Obama and instead it says Romney, if you click yes, that means you get it wrong. Don't worry about it. It's just a theory, folks. That's one thing. It's just a simple test they'll take. Second, you have to take it quickly. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Because what you're doing is testing your subconscious. So if you do it really slowly and you think about each answer, it won't test your subconscious, right? It'll just test your conscious. What we're looking for is subconscious, right? So take it as fast as possible. Right now Tony's thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make all kinds of mistakes. Yes, you will. That's part of it. Because the theory is that the mistakes you make when you're taking it quickly, you'll get a lot of right answers, you'll get a lot of wrong answers. Everybody gets lots of right and wrong answers on this. But the theory they have is the answers that you get are wrong are not random. You're more likely to make mistakes on certain things.
So there's certain ones that you want to
Oh, you could, I'll let you each take a different one. I think it'd be kind of interesting. You could do one on race, you could do one on gender, you could do one on sexual orientation, self-esteem, mental health issues, alcohol abuse. Heck, I think there's even one for guns. How you feel about guns or people with guns. You can do one on presidential candidates. But the important thing is, a couple things. First off, it's like a little test. It's kind of simple. You have to like match the image with the words. You got to get it right or wrong. Secondly, it's got to do it fast. And third, if you get a certain score, like a high score for someone or a low score, it does not mean that you're racist or that you're biased against somebody. That's another mistake people make. If you get a low score on something, you're like, oh my gosh, oh crap. Case in point, I had my religion class do this. I teach Sunday school sometimes. And I did it based on religion, like where we had to take this test. And I for like Christians, Jews, Muslims, I was kind of like, I had average scores. I had really low scores for Buddhists. I don't think I'm consciously biased against Buddhists, but it could be that I don't know very much about Buddhists. I don't know as much about Buddhism as I know about the others. I've met very few Buddhists in my life. But whatever it was, I was scoring much lower on them than everybody else. And so it doesn't mean I'm biased against Buddhist people. I'm pretty sure of that. it could be that it gives me anxiety because I just don't know as much about them. I feel kind of more self-conscious. Does that make sense? It's not like I'm against people believing in reincarnation. So, go ahead. Your answers are your own. You don't have to share them with them. But I think you have to click on something where you say that you're aware of the risks, because trust me, when this came out a couple of years ago, about 10 years ago, people got really mad. What? You're saying I'm biased? I am not biased. No, it's just a test. It's just one of those, hey, the results could be kind of interesting. Heck, you don't even have to take it. You could just hang out. But I just thought you might be interested. Follow directions on how to do the test, by the way. Because if you don't, it'll just say test results were inconclusive. So when you get a wrong answer, you have to, after you get one wrong, you have to put in the right answer and then move on.